After covering my husband's affair with my best friend for months to protect our kids, I finally had enough. When he mocked me for staying quiet, saying, "You're weak," I filed for divorce, and dropped a 300-page evidence binder on the courtroom table, leaving him sobbing in front of our entire family and losing custody on the spot. I kept my mouth shut for too long. I let him humiliate me in silence. I swallowed the betrayal because I thought it was better for the kids. That's what I told myself every day while I watched him come home late and lie to my face. I watched my best friend lie, too, with a smile and a hug like she wasn't sneaking around with my husband. Let me take you back to the beginning. We live in a quiet suburb just outside Columbus, Ohio. Not a fancy area, just normal. Tree-lined streets. Block parties in the summer. Good schools. I've lived here over a decade. People know me from PTA and bake sales. I'm the mom who always volunteers for field trips and never forgets birthdays. The one with the color-coded calendar and homemade cookies. Brad, my husband, was a project manager at a construction firm. Made decent money. Always busy. That was the story. Busy. Long meetings. Working late. Traffic. Conference calls. We have 2 kids, Zach, 11, and Emma, 7. Good kids. I was always trying to keep their life steady. Normal. I didn't want them to grow up in a broken home. That's why I held everything in. That's why I smiled through dinners and bedtime stories even after everything fell apart behind the scenes. It started with a mistake. One night, Emma left her iPad on the counter. I was making dinner. Brad had texted that he'd be late again, some supplier issue in Grove City. The iPad dinged, and I looked. It was still linked to his Apple account. A message popped up. From Tara. It said, "Still thinking about last night. You're addictive. I want more. Tara." My best friend. We met our freshman year at Ohio State. Lived together off campus. She held my hair back when I got too drunk at 20. She cried with me the night Brad proposed. She was in my wedding. She babysat my kids. She was the one I texted when Zach got his first loose tooth or Emma drew a unicorn that actually looked like a unicorn. She was like a sister. And she was sleeping with my husband. I didn't say a word. I didn't even blink. I just turned back to the chicken I was cooking and kept going. I helped Zach with his spelling list that night. I braided Emma's hair. I laughed at Brad's fake story about traffic and budget meetings. Then I went into the bathroom, locked the door, turned on the faucet, and cried into a towel. I couldn't scream. I couldn't fall apart. So instead, I started collecting. I bought a small notebook and hid it in the garage under an old shoebox. I started writing everything down. Times. Dates. Receipts. I logged every text that popped up on the iPad. I took pictures of call logs. I signed into our cell phone bill account and printed out every month going back 6 months. They talked every single day. At least 4 times a day. One call lasted 74 minutes. Then I checked his car one night. I used the spare key and opened the glove box. Receipts. Hotel rooms. Gas stations out of the way. A Starbucks gift card with a note, "Thanks for last weekend." I bought a dash cam the next day. Told Brad it was for insurance reasons. He didn't ask questions. He never thought I'd dig this deep. I had a cousin who used to work at a PI firm. She taught me how to use software to pull deleted texts. I borrowed her laptop for a research project. The things I found made me sick. Still, I didn't blow up. I didn't confront them. I played my part. Took the kids to school. Cooked dinner. Kissed my husband goodnight with a straight face. I watched Tara's fake smile every time she came over. She helped Emma pick out Halloween costumes like she wasn't stabbing me in the back. I stayed silent. Until one night, Brad walked into the kitchen while I was folding laundry. He leaned against the counter with a beer and said, "You know, I used to be scared of you. You used to have some fire. Now you're just soft." He looked me up and down. Smirked. Then he said it, "You're weak." I stared at him. And in that moment, something inside me clicked. I wasn't weak. I was patient. I had been building something. And now it was time to let it out. Next day, I made the call to the lawyer. Rhonda Grant. Old school. Tough. Been doing divorce law for 20 years. I brought her everything. All of it. I told her I wasn't just divorcing him, I was exposing him. We filed immediately. No warning. He got served while walking into a team meeting at his job. He came home red-faced. Screaming. Demanding answers. I didn't even get up from the couch. I just said, "Check your email. And don't forget page 12. That was the copy of a hotel booking in his name and Tara's. With a selfie of the two of them in robes. 6 weeks later, we walked into the Franklin County Courthouse. I wore plain jeans and a sweater. Brad showed up in a suit with slicked back hair and that smug look on his face. Tara came, too. Sitting in the back like this was a job interview. My lawyer walked in with the binder. It was thick. Tabbed. Indexed. Color-coded. The judge raised an eyebrow when Rhonda dropped it on the table. Brad laughed at first. Until she opened it. Brad's laugh didn't last long. At first, he tried to keep that same smug look on his face, like nothing could touch him. But every page Rhonda flipped through was another punch to his ego. Another brick in the wall closing in on him. The judge asked questions. Detailed ones. How often would you say you traveled to Grove City for work? Brad answered, once a month maybe. Rhonda slid a copy of his calendar across the table. There are 6 trips listed in 3 months. All booked on days where he clocked out at noon, Your Honor. None of them were business-related. All were within blocks of the Marriott Courtyard Hotel, room 217 booked in his name. Then she showed the surveillance photos. Dashcam footage. GPS tracking. The bill for lingerie bought at a boutique in Dublin, handwritten card inside, "You make me feel alive again." Tara turned pale. The judge looked straight at Brad. "Is there a reason you withheld this from the court?" Brad didn't speak. He couldn't. His jaw clenched. His eyes started darting around like he was looking for an exit. His lawyer leaned in, whispering something fast. Brad just stared ahead, sweating. Then Rhonda flipped to the next tab. This part one didn't even know she was going to do. She had pulled text messages where Brad insulted me. Mocked my parenting. Called me just a baby factory. Said I was too tired to be fun anymore. He had sent those to Tara. She replied, "You shouldn't have to go home to a dead bedroom." That one hit me in the gut. I looked at Tara, sitting behind Brad, and her face said it all. She knew this wasn't going to end in her favor. Not anymore. The judge called for a recess. Brad's lawyer tried to get me to settle. Said maybe we could work out joint custody and avoid dragging this out. Said Brad was willing to be reasonable. I looked at him and said, he didn't give me that same respect. Why should I? When we came back from recess, Rhonda brought out the final set of documents. School attendance logs. Zach had been late to school 4 times when he was with Brad on shared custody weekends. Once, he didn't show up at all. There was also a hospital record. Emma had a mild fever. Brad didn't call me. Didn't take her in. Waited until the next day, and she ended up with a 103-degree temperature. I had that record printed. Highlighted. The judge looked at Brad and said, "You've shown a repeated pattern of poor judgment, neglect, and dishonesty. In the interest of these children, temporary full custody is awarded to the mother until a final review." Gasps. Whispers. Tara got up and walked out. Brad's mother, who had been glaring at me all morning, actually covered her mouth and whispered, "Oh my God." Brad stayed seated. He was frozen. Then the tears came. Big, shaking sobs. Not silent ones. The ugly kind. His lawyer put a hand on his shoulder. Tried to calm him down. He just kept whispering, "This isn't fair. I didn't think she'd actually do this." I didn't look at him. I looked at the judge and said, "I stayed quiet for my kids. But I won't be silent anymore." I walked out of that courthouse feeling nothing. Not happy. Not victorious. Just done. But this wasn't the end. Because what I found out next made everything worse. A week after the hearing, I got a call from Zach's school counselor. She asked if we could talk privately, just the two of us. I thought maybe it was about the divorce. Zach had been quiet lately, pulling away a bit. But when I sat down in her office, she slid a folded piece of paper across the table. It was a drawing. Zach's. Crayon on wide-ruled paper. Two stick figures standing outside a house. One had red scribbles all over its face. The other was crying. Inside the house were two smaller figures, kids, with sad faces. On the back, he wrote, "I hate the secrets. Daddy says I have to lie." I couldn't breathe for a second. I said, "When did he draw this?" She told me Zach handed it to her after lunch. Said he didn't want to lie anymore. That his dad told him not to talk to me about grown-up stuff. I went home shaking. That night, I sat Zach down and asked him gently, "What did Daddy say you had to lie about?" Zach looked scared. He said, "He told me not to tell you that Miss Tara sleeps over when we're at his house. He said you'd get mad and ruin everything." Miss Tara. Still playing house. Still trying to be a part of my kids' lives. I called Rhonda immediately. Next morning, we filed for an emergency motion to modify visitation. We submitted Zach's drawing and a statement from the school counselor. The judge granted supervised visits only. No overnight stays. No contact with Tara. Brad tried to fight it. Tried to act shocked. Accused me of manipulating the kids. But it was too late. The court ordered a child therapist evaluation. And when that report came back 2 weeks later, it crushed any chance Brad had of keeping custody. The therapist's conclusion was blunt: the father has exposed the children to inappropriate relationships, manipulated their emotions, and failed to protect their psychological well-being. His behavior reflects poor boundaries and disregard for their emotional safety. But that wasn't the final twist. 3 days later, Tara's husband showed up at my door. That's right, she was married, too. His name was Daryl. I had met him once at a cookout years ago. Quiet guy, worked in logistics, always seemed distracted. Turns out, he'd found out everything 2 weeks earlier but had no idea how deep it went. Until he saw a Reddit thread that sounded suspiciously familiar. It was mine. A burner account I had made, anonymously venting during the worst of it. I never mentioned names or places, but I guess something clicked. He asked if we could talk. We sat in my kitchen for 2 hours. He told me Tara had been cheating for years. That Brad wasn't even her first affair. Just the longest one. And then he dropped something heavy. She told me she was thinking about getting pregnant. That she might stop birth control. Said Brad would step up if he had to. I almost vomited. She wanted to trap him. Rhonda filed another motion the next morning. Requesting full, permanent custody and removal of visitation rights until Brad underwent therapy, parenting classes, and a psych evaluation. And that was before we found the burner phones. Yes, phones. Plural. hidden in Brad's car. Daryl found one too, in Tara's dresser. What was on them? Photos. Messages. Some from before I even suspected anything. Some talking about me. Mocking me. Planning how they'd make me snap so I'd look unstable in court. They even joked about making it seem like I was drinking again. For the record, I've never had a drinking problem. I had 2 glasses of wine on a bad night once. Apparently that was enough for them to build a fake story. We submitted it all. Burner phones. Photos. Plans. Rhonda looked me dead in the eyes and said, "This goes beyond custody. We may be looking at criminal conduct here." Brad was going to lose more than his kids. Brad tried to stall. After the burner phones were submitted into evidence, he filed to delay the next hearing. Claimed he was emotionally unfit to appear and needed time for therapy. His lawyer quit 2 days later. Then Tara disappeared. She quit her job, deactivated all her social media, and stopped showing up for her supervised visitation with her own 2 nieces. Daryl's sister had custody while they separated. I didn't care where she went. I had bigger things to focus on. The final custody hearing took place 3 months after I filed the emergency motion. The courtroom was packed. Brad came alone. No lawyer. No Tara. His face looked hollow. His clothes didn't fit right anymore. He didn't make eye contact with me once. The judge laid it all out. Clear and cold. Emotional manipulation of the children, attempt to discredit the mother with fabricated stories, unsafe home environment, continued relationship with a third party who was actively trying to alienate the kids from their mother, evidence of discussions to deceive the court. Then he turned to me. He said, "Mrs. Dillard, your strength in documenting and enduring this is clear. But I'll also say this, waiting too long to act placed your children in harm's path longer than necessary. Don't let silence become protection again." It hit me like a slap. But he was right. I let things fester. I thought I was helping by keeping peace. I wasn't. Then he looked at Brad. He said, "Mr. Dillard, you are hereby denied unsupervised visitation. Custody is awarded solely and permanently to the mother. You must complete court-ordered therapy and parenting classes. Future access to your children will be determined based on your progress, with full discretion granted to the mother." Brad didn't say a word. He just nodded. It should have felt like victory. But as I walked out of that courtroom, holding Zach's hand and carrying Emma's stuffed bunny under my arm, I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt like I'd survived. There was one final twist before I closed that chapter. A month later, Brad emailed me. Subject line, "I'm sorry." In the body, "I didn't know how to fix things, so I just kept breaking them. I was angry at myself and took it out on you. You didn't deserve what I did. I never should have let her come between us. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know." I didn't reply. But I printed the email and saved it. Not to forgive him. To remind myself that silence doesn't protect you. It only gives liars more room to move. Today, I'm still in Columbus. I still live in the same house. But it's mine now. The kids are stronger. I'm stronger. And Tara? She never came back. Daryl filed for divorce and got full custody of their dog. Said it was the only one in the marriage who never lied. Sometimes, I see Brad in the grocery store. He doesn't look at me. I don't look at him. But I remember that day. The look on his face when the judge closed the file and said custody awarded to the mother. That's the look of a man who thought he could break someone who stayed silent, and never realized she was building a case the whole time. And now? He lives in a 1-bedroom apartment above a pawn shop. My kids live in peace. And I live free.